My son secretly took the ring that belonged to his late mother, a precious family heirloom I had carefully kept. He gave it to his girlfriend as an engagement ring without even asking for my permission. When I found out, I was shocked and asked him to return it. Since then, he hasn't spoken to me and blames me for ruining his happiness. I knocked on the door for almost a full minute. No answer. Just a muffled voice from the other side. Go away. We have nothing left to say. I stood there on the landing, empty-handed, feeling the pressure rise in my temples. That was my son, my own flesh and blood, the same boy who once told me he wanted to grow up to be like me, and now he was hiding behind a wooden door, shouting that I'd ruined his life. At the time, I couldn't quite grasp when it all began. But looking back, everything started with the ring. After my wife Martha passed away, I moved through life on autopilot, just trying to hold it together. We had two kids, Dylan, who was 23, and our younger daughter, Kaylee, 16. Martha had been sick for years, and we knew the end was coming. She'd planned everything out in advance. Her will, finances, inheritance. It was all prepared. Dylan got his share immediately. The savings and her car, the jewelry, all of it, was left to Kaylee to receive once she turned 18. There was one item in particular that stood out, the ring. It wasn't just any ring. It had been passed down through Martha's family for 3 generations, handcrafted by her grandfather, who was a jeweler, centered with a brilliant diamond and 2 pale blue sapphires on either side. She wore it only on special occasions, her graduation, our wedding, the day we celebrated Kaylee's birth. That ring wasn't just jewelry, it was legacy, history, memory. Kaylee knew this. She adored the ring from the time she was small. She'd stare at it with wide eyes like it was a fairy tale artifact, something sacred, something eternal. I kept Martha's jewelry in my bedroom, not locked away, just in the bottom drawer of my dresser, as always. The kids knew not to touch it, and I believe Dylan respected that, at least until recently. He started dating a woman named Haley, striking, confident, always the center of attention. Kaylee didn't like her right away, but stayed quiet. I stayed out of it. It was Dylan's life, and he seemed happy. Then out of nowhere, he started talking about getting married. I didn't expect that. They'd only been dating for a few months, but he was serious. First, he made comments. Then he started hovering around my desk, asking questions about Martha's jewelry, about rings. I got nervous, but didn't say anything. Until one day he asked outright, "Dad, would it be okay if I used Mom's ring to propose to Haley?" At first, I thought I misheard. "That ring's not mine," I said. "It's Kaylee's now. That's her part of the inheritance. You got yours." He went quiet, then added, "Well, maybe she'd give it to me. She's not using it." I told him he could ask her. Once, gently, but no pressure. And if she said no, that was the end of it. He agreed. I was there when he asked her. He was polite, careful. But Kaylee immediately said no. She didn't even hesitate. "Number, I can't. That's Mom's ring. I want to keep it." Her eyes shimmered, but her voice was steady. Dylan nodded, said, "Okay, got it," and left. I thought he handled it maturely. I figured that was the end of it, until the following week. It was a Thursday when Kaylee called me, crying. I had just finished a long shift at work and was about to head home when I saw her name flashing on my screen. Her voice was shaking. "Dad," Dylan came over. He wanted to talk about the ring again, but I told him no. Then he got mad. He didn't yell, but he was upset. Then he went into your room. That froze me. I asked if she was okay, and she said yes, just shaken. I told her to lock the doors and wait for me. I drove home faster than I should have, already knowing something wasn't right. When I got there, Kaylee was sitting on the couch, pale, hugging her knees. I didn't even take my shoes off, just went straight to the bedroom. The jewelry box was open. The ring was gone. My stomach dropped. I stared at the empty spot where it had sat for over a year. My chest tightened. My hands started shaking, not from fear, but from something colder, something sharper. I called Dylan. No answer. I called again. Voicemail. I sent him a message. "Return the ring immediately, or I'm going to the police. I don't care if you've already proposed. I will get it back one way or another." That got his attention. He called back within 5 minutes. His voice was breathless, panicked. "Dad, you can't do this to me. I already gave it to Haley. She's wearing it right now." My voice was low, calm, but cold. "You stole it. It wasn't yours to give. You'll get it back. Or I will." He started to cry. I'd heard Dylan cry before, when he scraped his knee as a boy, when his dog died, when he got his heart broken in high school. This wasn't the same. This was guilt. "You're my father," he kept saying. "How could you do this to me?" "How could you do this to us?" I replied. There was silence. Then he hung up. The next morning, Dylan showed up with Haley. I hadn't seen her in person in months. She was wearing a tight white sweater, her makeup perfect, and the ring glinting on her finger like it belonged there. They sat down at my kitchen table, like this was going to be some kind of civilized discussion. Haley started with a sigh. Look, I know what happened. I know the ring wasn't really his, but I fell in love with it. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever worn. It just fits. I didn't blink. Then get a replica made. The original doesn't belong to you. Dylan chimed in, trying to calm the waters. Dad, please, she really loves it. Isn't there any way? Kaylee had come out from her room by then, silent, standing behind me. I looked at her. She looked at the ring like it had betrayed her. No, she said simply. Haley's eyes narrowed. This is insane. You're punishing us for being in love. No, I said. I'm protecting what's not yours. And then she lost it. She yanked the ring off her finger, flung it across the table so it bounced and skidded right into Kaylee's hands. You're all insane, she snapped, eyes wet. I hope you both rot in your bitterness. She stormed out. Dylan followed, but not before turning to me with his voice cracking. You ruined everything. I said nothing, because deep down I knew he had done that all on his own. After they left, the house felt different. There was a strange kind of silence, heavy, brittle. Kaylee stood in the middle of the kitchen with the ring in her hands, staring at it like it was something dirty, not a treasured heirloom. I saw her fingers trembling. Then without a word, she turned and went to her room. I stayed behind, listening to the ticking of the wall clock and the soft drip of the kitchen faucet. It felt like something had cracked in our home, something that wouldn't be easy to fix. That evening, I texted Dylan. No anger, no accusations. Just the same pictures of the ring I'd sent before, letting him know he could use them to get a replica made if he still wanted to. He didn't respond. The next day, the ripple effect started. First, Martha's cousin called me, saying he'd heard something unsettling from a niece. Then an old family friend sent a vague message. Hope you weren't too hard on Dylan. He probably just wanted to make a sweet gesture. Clearly, someone was spinning a version of events. I knew Dylan was looking for sympathy. I also knew he wouldn't find it where he expected. Still, it stung to realize he was trying to cast himself as a victim. He, who had stolen, who entered my room uninvited, who shoved his sister when she tried to stop him, and now it seemed he wanted comfort. To my surprise, though, the support didn't come. Not for him. A couple of days later, Dylan's cousin Justin called me. His tone was dry, frustrated. He said, I tried talking to him, but he's living in a fantasy. Thinks everyone's against him. After that, people started reaching out to me. Some called, some texted. A few even brought over food. Not because I needed it, but just to show I wasn't alone. Kaylee kept to herself. I didn't push. I left meals by her door, checked in with a quiet, how are you doing? She'd say, I'm fine, but I could tell she wasn't. She was afraid. Not of the ring, not of the fight. She was afraid her brother wasn't the person she thought he was, and I was afraid of that too. A week passed before Dylan finally reached out. Not with an apology, just a message saying he wanted to have the ring evaluated to make a replica. He asked if I'd meet him at the jeweler. No explanation, no acknowledgement. I hesitated, but I went. He was already there with Haley. She looked flawless again. Hairstyled, makeup perfect. When she saw the ring, her eyes lit up. She reached for it. Can I just try it on for a second? I told her no. She pouted but backed off. The jeweler examined the ring carefully. He turned it in his hands, checked the stones, the engraving. The band. Then he gave the estimate. It was 5 times higher than I expected. The ring was much more valuable than I realized. Handmade, vintage platinum, unique settings. Far out of Dylan's price range. The jeweler suggested alternatives. Cheaper materials, similar design. Visually almost identical, but at a fraction of the cost. I nodded. Sensible solution. Dylan looked thoughtful, but Haley exploded. No way! I don't wear knockoffs, she snapped. Then she turned to him with a look of disgust. And then to me. And you? You're just a bitter old man ruining people's lives. Then she walked out. No goodbye. No second glance. Dylan sat there hunched like someone had punched the wind out of him. I felt no pity, just fatigue. I looked at my son. He didn't say much. Then finally, I still love her. I didn't answer, because maybe that was his biggest mistake of all. 2 days after our visit to the jeweler, they broke up. I can't say I was surprised. Haley vanished just as quickly as she had appeared. No tears, no dramatic goodbye. She was simply gone, as if she'd never existed. Later, I heard from one of Dylan's friends, someone I bumped into at the grocery store, that she was the one who ended it. She told Dylan she couldn't be with a man who couldn't stand up for his choices, especially to his own father. Word for word, apparently. Dylan didn't contact me. He didn't call or text. Kaylee, though relieved, stayed guarded. She still kept her door closed most of the day, but she began coming out more in the evenings. We started watching movies together again, almost like before. Almost. And then another knock at the door. Dylan. He didn't come to talk. He came for something. I could see it in his face. Tight jaw, eyes avoiding mine. He wouldn't look at me as he stepped inside. Didn't say hello, didn't apologize. Just walked in like nothing had happened. I said nothing. I already knew what he was after. He went straight to my bedroom, opened the dresser drawer, found the jewelry box empty, stood there a moment, then turned to me. "Where are they?" I looked him in the eye. "In a safety deposit box." He nodded once, no argument, and headed for the door. At the threshold, he turned. "So you don't trust me anymore?" I didn't answer. He walked out. Didn't slam the door, but somehow the hallway still felt heavier once he was gone. The next day, I changed the locks. I didn't want to. I kept hoping the tension would ease, that things would return to normal. But each day made it clearer. My son had become someone I didn't recognize. Or maybe he always had been. Maybe he was just good at hiding it. I wasn't sure which was worse. Then came the strange week. Neighbors told me they saw Dylan lingering near the house. He'd come up to the front porch, peek into windows, didn't break in, didn't make a scene, just stood there, watching. Kaylee was scared. She woke up a couple nights to noises on the porch, looked out the window, saw no one. I installed cameras, got an alarm system, everything to make her feel safe. One day I came home to find scratches around the front lock. It hadn't been broken, just tampered with. I checked the camera feed. It was Dylan. He'd come by while we were out, stood at the door, fiddled with the lock, then left, unsuccessful. That night I messaged him. I was furious, but I didn't curse or shout. I simply asked, "Why?" He responded an hour later. "I came to get what's mine by right." That phrase stuck with me. By right. Since then, he hasn't come back. Kaylee sleeps with the lights on now. I barely sleep at all. I sit in the dark thinking, trying to understand when it all went wrong. When the boy who once built sandcastles in the backyard became a man willing to sneak into our home for a ring. Maybe it didn't start with the ring. Maybe it started when I waited too long to stop feeling sorry for him. I didn't sleep at all that night. At first, I just lay there listening to Kaylee shifting in her room. Then I got up, went to the kitchen, and sat at the table under the soft glow of the desk lamp. The air smelled like dust and old wood. I felt like I was sitting in a museum of my own life, surrounded by things that were no longer real, just exhibits. On the table was an old photo of Martha with the kids. She was laughing, arms around them at the lake. I stared at that picture until my eyes burned, and then I realized I didn't want to just observe anymore. The next morning, I took the day off, called the bank to extend the safety deposit lease, scheduled an appointment with my lawyer, went to the estate office and made changes. I didn't remove Dylan from the will, but I restructured everything. He would no longer have access unless certain conditions were met. It wasn't revenge. It was protection for what little family I had left. That evening, Justin, his cousin, came by. He said he'd tried to talk to Dylan again. Dylan was still blaming me, blaming Kaylee, blaming life. There was no anger in his voice, just resentment, no accountability. Justin had hoped he'd see reason. He didn't. The next morning, I got a security alert. Someone had tried to open the back door. I checked the footage. This time, it wasn't just a knock or a jiggle. It was an actual attempt to break in. The camera caught a hooded figure, dark jacket, something in his hand that looked like a crowbar. I called the police immediately, but by the time they arrived, the person was gone. The camera caught part of his face, enough to recognize him. It was Dylan. I didn't feel anger anymore, just something cold. When the officers arrived, I showed them everything, explained the backstory. One of them asked, "Is that your son?" I nodded. The other said, "You're handling this awfully calmly, sir." I didn't know what to say. When pain lingers long enough, it stops burning. It just becomes background noise. A few hours later, Kaylee called. She had been coming back from her friends and saw the patrol cars around the house. She panicked. I told her what had happened. She went quiet, then asked, "Do you think he was trying to rob us?" I told her I didn't know. We had dinner together that night in silence. No music, no TV, just chewing and the ticking of the kitchen clock. Then she asked, "What if he comes back?" "I'll keep the door shut," I said, "but if he wants to talk, I'll open it." I don't know if she believed me, but she didn't say anything else. The next day, Dylan finally called. His voice sounded worn, hollow. He said he was leaving town, selling his apartment, starting fresh just somewhere far away. "You don't want to say goodbye?" I asked. "What for?" he replied. "You betrayed me anyway." Then he hung up. I stared at the screen for a while, then turned off my phone. The next morning, I found Dylan's house key in the mailbox. No note, no message. Just the key. It was the end of a chapter, no epilogue, no explanation. When someone leaves, you think it's over, that the pain will go with their things, their footsteps, the smell of their clothes. But in truth, everything stays, and more. Because now silence joins the pain, a silence so sharp it hums. In the first few days after he left, the house felt cleaner, calmer. Kaylee even started smiling a little more often. But I knew it wasn't relief. It was the eye of the storm. A pause. A break between acts. That Sunday, Kaylee and I cleaned out the storage closet. Old boxes, books, childhood trinkets. We found her old drawings, school crafts. She laughed, remembering the dinosaurs she used to draw with 6 legs. I watched her and felt fear building in my chest. Because with every one of her laughs, I saw more clearly that Dylan might never return to this house. Ever. And then the phone rang. It was the police station. An officer informed me they had new information. A neighbor living near Dylan's old apartment had filed a report. Someone had tried to break into her unit at night. The security footage showed a hooded figure. From the walk, the body language, it looked a lot like Dylan. They wanted to know if I knew where he was. I said I didn't. That was the truth. Then Justin called. His voice was uneasy. Did you see what Dylan posted online? I hadn't been checking, but I opened it and I saw, post after post, filled with lines like, "My family betrayed me. I don't need anyone. They stole my love." Hundreds of likes, comments from strangers. "Stay strong. You deserve better." No one knew he was the one who had destroyed everything. That behind all this melodrama was theft and betrayal. One photo showed him with a new girl. The caption read, "Starting fresh." I felt nothing. No anger, no jealousy, no relief. You just avoid. Kaylee noticed I was unusually quiet. I showed her his profile. She read a few lines, closed the screen, stood up, and left the room. Half an hour later, I found her in the garage. She was rummaging through boxes. I asked, "Well, what are you doing?" "I'm putting away everything that used to belong to him. I don't want to see it anymore." I didn't answer. I just helped. We packed a box, clothes, books, his old baseball glove, carried it to the attic, closed the hatch. That evening, lying in bed, I heard her crying softly, not sobbing, not gasping, just that steady, stubborn sound of pain that doesn't ask for sympathy. I didn't go in. I knew she had to get through this in her own way. The next morning, I checked the cameras again. Everything looked calm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, and I wasn't wrong. It all happened on a Thursday. I was at work when a security alert popped up on my phone. The backdoor motion sensor had gone off. I opened the app. The first thing I saw was a shadow by the rear entrance, then a figure in a hoodie, this time holding an axe. My fingers went cold. I called the police immediately. Then I called Kaylee. She was home, but she wasn't alone. Her friend had stayed over. The girls locked themselves in her room and turned off the lights. I told them not to open the door until the officers arrived. I watched on the feed as she tried to force the lock. Then the alarm blared. She dropped the axe and ran. The camera caught her face clearly. It was her. Haley. I got home when the police were already there taking statements. They'd collected the axe with her fingerprints. The footage captured everything. The girls were scared but safe. Kaylee was trying to be brave, but I could see her hands shaking. That evening, Haley's parents called. They said they'd heard about what happened. They apologized, explained she'd been struggling for a long time. No drugs, just a serious mental health issue. She had been taken to a clinic. They promised she would never come near our family again. They were moving her out of town. I didn't feel vindicated. I even felt a little sorry for her, but only a little. I expected Dylan to reach out, say something, apologize, or at least ask if Kaylee was okay. He knew what had happened. Everyone in town was talking about it. People messaged me with updates, but from him, silence. A few days later, a friend of his, a co-worker, called me, told me Dylan was furious, said Haley had ruined his life, that she was crazy, and if it weren't for the ring, none of this would have happened. He was still blaming everyone but himself. Kaylee heard all of it. I didn't hide anything from her. She's old enough, but I saw what it did to her. She couldn't believe that the brother who used to hold her when she was a toddler now didn't even ask if she was okay after the break-in. She started sleeping with the lights on. I got her into therapy. The house grew quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet when everyone's asleep. The kind that settles in after a storm, when everything might still be standing, but something inside feels broken. I changed the locks again, installed more cameras, forced myself to stop checking Dylan's social media. Not out of anger, just because I couldn't stand watching him play the victim, pointing fingers at everyone else. I was just too tired. Last night I woke up to find Kaylee standing at my bedside. She didn't say anything, just stood there, staring. I asked, "What's wrong?" "I had a dream," she whispered, "that he came back and took the ring again, and I couldn't stop him." I pulled her close, held her hand until she fell asleep again. We were both living in fear of a family that didn't feel like one anymore. I hoped things would finally calm down after Haley's break-in and arrest, that we'd get some peace. But instead, the phone rang. It was Dylan's neighbor. "He's leaving," she said, "just packing up his car, alone, not saying goodbye to anyone." I grabbed my keys and left. Not for a dramatic goodbye, just one last chance to say what needed to be said. When I knocked, he didn't open the door, but he answered through it. "I'm leaving. For good. There's nothing left to say." I stood there, silent. Then I said, I just wanted to talk, not argue. You ruined my life, he said, even if you don't see it. Then, silence. Suddenly, he started talking about the ring again, that I should have let Haley keep it, or at least paid for the replica. Now everything was lost. He didn't want anything to do with me or Kaylee anymore. I felt myself boil over. I answered sharply, reminded him that he was the one who destroyed his own relationship. He assaulted his sister. He stole from our home. No one, and I mean no one, took his side. That this wasn't a ruined life. It was the consequence of actions he refused to take responsibility for. He went quiet, then hissed through the door. Screw you, Dad. I heard things crashing inside, then crying. I stood there for a moment, frozen. That's when I noticed his neighbor watching from down the hall. As soon as we made eye contact, she closed her door. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. They asked for my name, said someone had reported a possible break-in. One officer went upstairs, the other placed handcuffs on me. He was polite, said it was just protocol until they sorted things out. I sat quietly on the bench while they checked the footage and spoke with witnesses. About 20 minutes later, the first officer returned and removed the cuffs. Everything matches your story. We've already spoken to him. I thanked them and turned to leave. But the other officer asked, You're the dad? The one with the ring? I nodded. He gave me a tired, ironic look. We've heard about it. It's a shame how it turned out. I walked to my car. A neighbor passed by, recognized me, shook my hand, told me I had a strong backbone. When I got home, I told Kaylee everything. She listened quietly, then hugged me. He's not my brother anymore, she whispered. He's just someone who looks like him. I didn't argue. The next day, Dylan left. No calls, no messages, nothing on social media, just silence. Neighbors said he didn't close his gym membership or return the parking pass. I removed him from my will, not out of spite, out of necessity. It's just me and Kaylee now. I moved the ring back to the safety deposit box. Kaylee has her own access code now. She knows it's secure. While writing this, I noticed it's almost spring. The snow's starting to melt. Kaylee recently painted a landscape and hung it in the kitchen. It's warm, simple, peaceful. I look at it every day, and for the first time in a long while, it doesn't hurt anymore.